Hey, what's up guys? Jake's Garage here. This video is going to be about, I had briefly mentioned it in a previous video, I believe it was an update video, that I was doing a four-wheel drive, automatic four-wheel drive delete on my 2010 Ford Explorer. So this video is going to detail what it is, why I did it, and how I made it work, basically like how I felt it should have worked from the factory. So on a 06 to 2010 Explorer, and I don't think it matters whether it's a V8 like mine or the 4.0 V6, if you have these buttons, if you have 4x4 auto, 4x4 high, and 4x4 low, your vehicle's pretty much always in four-wheel drive. Now it doesn't quite work like all-wheel drive as far as I can tell. It will not cause clunking when you make turns, but when you accelerate, I don't think it distributes power to the front wheels. I think it engages four-wheel drive, and that's why they call it 4x4 auto and not all-wheel drive. All-wheel drive, to me, means that it's almost always delivering power to all four wheels, and if it's not, it's distributing the power as needed. This, I believe, pretty much just engages four-wheel drive when it senses that you need it, and you can feel it engage. Sometimes it bangs into four-wheel drive. A lot of people complain that it's noisy. This one was very noisy when I got it, and it would engage four-wheel drive on dry road. Like, I would just be going straight and I would take off from a light very, very sensibly, and I could tell that the front axle was being driven. So, long story short, the transfer case that was in this thing didn't have 4 low, so I sent it to the dealer. It was under warranty. They replaced the transfer case with a brand new one. Immediately upon getting it back, I did the what is most commonly known as the brown wire mod. Now, that's on the older Explorers. On these Explorers, it's not the brown wire, it's the gray with orange stripe wire. Underneath your dash here, where those red wires are, there is a the 4x4 module, the four-wheel drive module is in there. There's 2 plugs. One has pretty heavy gauge wire and not very many wires, and the other one has thinner gauge wires and there's a lot more. Here's a picture of the plug in question. On the V6s, they're actually flip-flopped. So this, on my car, on the V8, this plug is actually towards the seats, and in the V6s, from what I understand, it's actually on the firewall side of the module. So it's pretty easy once you get in there. The wire that we're talking about here is number 8 position. That is basically the power to that four-wheel drive module. And it's on fuse 18, goes to the circuit breaker, I believe, and again, it's the gray wire with the orange stripe. You're gonna disconnect that. Now, what that does, as far as I can tell, and there's a little bit of disclaimer that goes with this, is it completely eliminates four-wheel drive from ever engaging, ever working. That includes the buttons, that includes auto, that includes everything. The truck is 100% two-wheel drive, and you go ahead and hold that button down until your traction control flashes. You have 0 driving aids. I think the only thing that stays active is the roll stability control, I think, from what the owner's manual says, which is fine with me. It doesn't really impede driving. Why would you want to do this? In my opinion, it drives better in two-wheel drive. There's times when you can tell the four-wheel drive kind of causes some weirdness. It's hard to explain the feeling, but it feels lighter. It feels like it drives nicer. The other thing is, and people will tell you that this is a bunch of crap, but they say that the mile per gallon is not affected. I disagree. That's 17.8 miles per gallon, and I don't reset that every fill, so that's like a true average. Like, this thing generally doesn't get below 17 miles per gallon while I have it in two-wheel drive mode. And when I have everything turned on, it gets down below 17 with the exact same driving style. And I don't care what anybody says. I see an improvement, so to me it's worth it just for disconnecting a wire. What else? So the disclaimer with this is, I can't guarantee that if you do this, you won't screw something up. This has been in two-wheel drive for months and months and months, and I've let it disconnected, and I haven't done anything with it. And just recently, I have put in a system to re-engage four-wheel drive because winter's coming, and honestly, auto four-wheel drive is really nice in the rain. This has a decent amount of power, being a V8, and going around corners or coming off a stop, going around a corner can get a little hairy sometimes. So I wanted it to work, and I originally just had the wire pulled out, depinned from this plug. So that's the why, and the, you know, basically what's going on. So what I'm going to do real quick is I'm going to show you the functionality that I have. I'm going to prove to you that it works because it's raining out, and I have some you know, some stone areas that I can prove to you that it's in two-wheel drive and prove to you that it's in four-wheel drive. The second part of this video is going to be me showing you the device that I made. So what I wanted to do was, you could put a toggle switch on that, 100%. You could put a toggle switch. That requires you to drill a hole somewhere, mount the toggle switch. It requires you to know, you know, up and down which one's which. You could have an on and off legend on there, that's fine. But I don't know, to me, I wanted to make it more complicated and make it work a little bit more like factory. So as of right now, none of these buttons do anything, even for, you know, you can push that to your heart's content. If you push a little bit harder on it, you'll hear a click and you'll see a light. Okay? When that light's on, everything works as normal. So if I push four-wheel high, I get four-wheel high. If I come back and push auto, four-wheel high goes off. That stays on. That means that four-wheel drive auto is on. You want it to go off? Push it again. What I did was, and like I said, second part of the video, is I added a micro switch to this. These three switches, you cannot get single outputs from them. You can, but you have to, they're run through resistors. So this has a resistance, this has a resistance, and this has a resistance. And unless you can pull that resistance and decipher it, you can't tap into these switches individually. So I added a micro switch physically to this. It is controlling the circuit that is hidden in this little box right here. This little box has a relay and a what's called a latching, momentary latching circuit. So every time it gets a momentary button push, it stays on or stays off depending on which state it's in. This then runs down to that gray wire, which I split in half and put the relay on that. So the relay is acting like a toggle switch, basically. For a safety feature, on this little box, there's a little toggle switch, right, or a little rocker switch. If I flip that to on, this whole system is disabled and it works just like it does from the factory. Got four-wheel drive, got everything. So if in the event that my system here fails, I can easily kick it into four-wheel drive so I'm not stuck on the side of the road in a snowbank or something because my fuse blows or whatever. This works off of, it's being powered, the whole system is being powered off of the, behind the switch here, there's a harness that plugs into this. There is a hot and a ground, and I believe that it is the same hot as this number 8, because it's on the same fuse. The nice thing about that fuse is that is hot in on and crank. So if you get in the car and you, you know, you turn the key on and you kick it in the four-wheel high and then you start it, it won't reset. The other thing it won't do is it won't keep memory. So if you have it on and you shut the car off and then you start it back up again, it will not be on when you get in the car. I like it like that. I could have figured out a way to keep it, you know, running, but ultimately I decided not to do that because whenever I would park my Jeep, I'd put it in two-wheel drive. So that kind of gives you the overview. Again, I've heard of people running in two-wheel drive for years with no problems. I have not seen any problems. In my opinion, I believe that you're actually prolonging the life of your transfer case. My transfer case was broken internally, and I looked at the parts and I could tell which parts they were, and I wholeheartedly believe that it slammed into four-wheel drive at one point and broke itself. So, you know, in my opinion, this is just my opinion. I don't have any hard evidence on this other than my own experience with this whole situation. So right now we're just gonna pop it in drive and we're gonna go for a little, I'm just gonna prove to you that I am in fact in two-wheel drive with no traction control. So that's gonna be pretty easy to do, even pulling out of here. Yeah, see, I just spun a whole bunch. It's raining, so it's kind of hard to really do anything, but everything works as normal. That can be turned on the fly. It doesn't cause any problems because you're not actually engaging four-wheel drive. You're just engaging the ability for the four-wheel drive to work, to do what it's supposed to do. So we got a stone little road here. When I turn, I'm going to give a little gas, and you're going to see that I'm in fact in two-wheel drive. So I'm in two-wheel drive. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to turn around very carefully. Make sure nobody's coming. Don't hit anything. Okay, so we're still in two-wheel drive. So I'm going to stop, and again, I don't have to stop. I can just go ahead and click it. Now I've got auto four-wheel drive engaged. So here I'm going to give it some gas, and we'll see what happens. Nothing. No spinning at all. So I'll come up here. I'm completely in stones right now. All four tires. And now it's kicked into four-wheel drive. A little bit of spin. With the auto, you get a little bit of spin, and then it kicks into four-wheel drive. So, you know, that's how it works. It just works really good. And the little light that I installed, you can see that now you're at about my eye level. The light is very, very bright, but it's not so big that it's obnoxious. That's why I made it such a small little opening in the switch. Very noticeable even in sunlight, even when it's bright. Obviously it's not bright today, but so I'm going to go into one more little stone area here, and I'm going to come to a stop to do this, but I'm going to put it in four-wheel drive. So now it's in 4 high. So now I'm locked. Now I've got full four-wheel drive, just like it's supposed to. And you'll probably hear it clanking when I make this turn. Maybe not, because I am on stones. Four-wheel drive, no spinning whatsoever, and I could put it in 4 low, but you get the point. It works. So that's and then you can just switch back to auto. So that's basically how it works. I think it works really good. I'm happy with it. Like I said, everything still functions. Like this switch still functions like normal. You just have to push it a little bit harder to get that click. And it's tactile because there's a micro switch attached to it. Now we're in two-wheel drive again. Like I said, the micro switch has it's a pretty decent sized switch. You'll see it in my next video. It's got a nice tactile click to it, so when you click it, not only can you hear the relay in the glove box, well, you can't really hear the relay in the glove box, but you can feel the switch. And it just makes it nicer to work with. But so check out the second half of the video that has the kind of the technical details, shows you the inside of the box that I made, and if you have any questions, let me know. Okay, so the way I decided to solve this problem was way more complicated than what a lot of people do. So a lot of people will disconnect that wire, cut it, and just put a simple toggle switch on it and mount it under the dash. Now that's probably works fine. What I wanted to do though, because I overcomplicate things and I like things to work neat, I like to, you know, challenge the fix versus just kind of, you know, doing the quickest thing. I decided to make this work more like I thought it should work from the factory. How I consider this to be a good fix. So what I did was I wanted to. I'll start over here. So what I thought about doing was, okay, how do I take a momentary push and have it toggle something on and off? Because I knew these were momentary switches, and I was like, maybe I can tap into that, use that momentary signal to trigger the, you know, connecting or disconnecting that wire using a relay. So I stumbled upon a device. It's Pololu, Pololu. You can see the website there and the item number of what I'm using. What this is a momentary latching circuit, and you can see it down there. And what it does is it takes a voltage in, and there's a button on board, but you can also attach your own momentary switch. And when you hit it, and when it gets a momentary pulse, it switches the circuit closed or open, and it stays that way as long as it remains powered. So what I did was I kind of started figuring that out, and all it's doing is triggering a relay, which is over here. Like, I got just a tiny little relay, and the relay is actually connecting and disconnecting the wires that will, essentially be spliced into that gray and orange striped wire under the dash. So once I got into it, I took this apart, and I think I took some pictures of it, and maybe I'll put them up with a little bit of dubbing. But bottom line is, this wouldn't work just tapping off of this switch, because all three of these switches use only two wires. You've got a common wire that basically runs along and it has resistors off of each switch, and then a common, like basically a ground wire. So when you hit this one, you get one resistance. When you hit this one, you get a different resistance, and you hit this one, you get a third resistance. So there's three different resistance in that circuit. So I couldn't easily. Here's a picture of the circuit. So here's the buttons. See, 1, 2, 3. Those are the ohms that the buttons feed back to the 4x4 control module. So I couldn't use that like I wanted to. So what I did was really quickly brainstormed, and what I ended up doing was I ended up gluing a piece of ABS. I just had like a couple pieces of scrap ABS, and this is like a little square, and it fits down in this cavity, and I glued it to the back of the switch, and it's just poking out right down there. And then I super glued this micro switch I had laying around to the back. So effectively what I've done is I've added a switch to this push button. And as you'll see in the demonstration video, that's the switch working normal. But if you push a little bit harder, now you're getting the micro switch. Come on, focus. It's just a little extra push. Right down in the corner, there is a little hole I made with a green LED. You'll see that come on in a second. So really, that's it. So when I hit this, when I'm in the car and I start it, there'll be no four-wheel drive. It's going to be in two-wheel drive every time I start the car. The reason I'm doing that is this needs power all the time to have a memory, and I just didn't want it running all the time. I think current draw was like 0.01 amps or something. It's really small, but there was just no reason. So when you get in the car, it's going to be two-wheel drive. If it's wintertime or there's snow on the ground, all you're going to do is click it once, the green light will come on, and then the truck will operate fully like factory. You'll have high, low, back to auto, as long as that green light's on. I'm going to have to do a little bit of testing to see, make sure it works on the fly, and make sure it, et cetera, et cetera. I'm sure I don't want to go from 4 low to clicking it off. I don't know what would happen there. Probably don't want to do that. But what it'll do is it'll make it easier for my wife to take it. I'll tell her, like, if the green light's not on, push it until the green light comes on, and then you'll be in four-wheel drive. And that way I can leave it in two-wheel drive for me, and she'll be all right. So that's what happens. You're gonna click that hard. It's gonna trigger that latching switch, which is going to turn on the relay, which is going to connect that wire. Also, you'll notice this toggle switch. The toggle switch is connected to the same 2 points of the relay, which is from Radio Shack. Here's a pin out of the relay. I have it wired normally open. So that pin and this pin both have the wires that go down to the control module. So this is a backup switch. I have this soldered to the same point. So if for any reason this burns up, this stops working, I can flick that switch. I have my multimeter hooked up right now. So that's my backup. So here is the whole thing working. So I got 12 volts going to it, no lights, no nothing, everything's good. open line. You can push this to your heart's content, nothing will happen, but if you click it, you get the green light. There's a little light in there that works too, and it's back to being a closed circuit. And then if you shut the car off, it's going to kill that, and when you turn it back on, it's not going to remember. It's not going to remember. I toyed with the idea, but the other problem is if I hook this up the way I have it hooked up, this light will stay on even with the key off. I didn't feel like messing around trying to figure out how to power this with a keyed on, but still trigger it from this. I've already made this way too complicated. So, but that's how it works. You're just gonna boom, boom. Yeah. Let me know what you think about that. It's gonna be pretty cool. I'll show it in a second here. I'll show it installed and try to maybe demonstrate working, but that's gonna be tough. So, but yeah, that's how she's gonna work out.